Welcome back to the series where we focus on a moment or sentiment from each Premier League season, and today we focus on 1996 and 1997 at Middlesbrough, and one of the most remarkable seasons in Premier League history. We'll also have a look at some of the relevant cards, stickers and tickets from that season, so let's go back. Steve Gibson was and is a very successful local businessman and had helped save Middlesbrough from extinction in 1986 when he was part of a consortium that saved the club. In 1994 he ascended to the role of chairman and used a significant part of his fortune from his very successful haulage firm to transform the fortunes of his beloved Middlesbrough. He had convinced English football royalty Bryan Robson to take on his first manager's role and built the state-of-the-art 30,000 all-seater Riverside Stadium, which the club had moved into in 1995. This was in time for a return to the Premier League, where Robson had won promotion in his first season, and then they were to finish a very respectable 12th in the 1995-1996 season. In addition to improving the club's infrastructure, Gibson also spent heavily on the playing squad, giving it something of the composition of Florentino Perez's Galacticos and Pavon model. This is none more evident when looking at the Middlesbrough base cards from Merlin's Premier Gold 1996-97 set for the season. It's a beautiful set in its simplicity with just the base set and then the Crest cards and the International Masters of the Game insert set. As for the Crest cards, this is the Middlesbrough one, with an embossed type effect and then some club stats on the back. The the Riverside Stadium, which we saw mentioned. The composition of the squad comes to the fore when looking at the base cards that Middlesbrough have in the set. You have the industrious midfielders Robbie Mustoe, and Craig Hignett, who I always consider to be very underrated. You can see the gold stamp here, and then a bio on the back. Hignett described as a high-scoring midfielder with a penchant for overlapping down the wing. And then the fullbacks, Curtis Fleming and Neil Cox, who became Middlesbrough's very first £1 million signing. It's even mentioned on the back of his bio in 1994. The fees being spent by Gibson would escalate very rapidly. The next summer, young English talent Nick Barmby joined for just over £5 million. And then at the end of 1995, Middlesbrough pulled off a huge coup when they managed to sign a Brazilian international, Juninho. The foreign contingent became stronger still with the signing of Emerson in the summer of 1996. Very talented Brazilian midfielder. But then it was the next signing, the signing of Fabrizio Ravanelli, a global superstar in which then the footballing world really began to stand up and take notice. Juninho was an incredible player, as we'll speak about, but he was a young player. Ravanelli was at the height of his powers. He had represented Italy in Euro 96, and also just a few weeks prior to that, he was seen scoring a goal for Juventus in their Champions League victory against Ajax in the Champions League final. So it was clear Middlesbrough meant business, and it was an incredibly exciting time for Middlesbrough fans and also the Premier League. This is Ravanelli's portrait sticker from the Merlin Premier League 1997 album, and actually it also touches upon something very interesting. Like we said, the 1996 European Cup triumph, and then it says his transfer epitomised the power shift from the Serie A to the Premier League. Now, I think this is a little bit premature because Italian clubs were breaking the world transfer record all the time and would subsequently do so pretty much until the beginning of the millennium. But it does touch upon what would become true. So it was probably just likely a bit premature. And then, like the previous year's stickers, which can have the shreddies back, this one, Juninho's one, his first Middlesbrough sticker, the alternate shreddies back. Actually, 97 was similar, as Kellogg signed a deal with the Premier League where the collaboration yielded the ultimately short-lived but entertaining Strike cereal. The advertising campaign was narrated by Richard Keys and focused on the influx of overseas stars coming to the Premier League in that era. It was, of course, headlined by Ravanelli at the end.
You have come to England because I am still hungry.
New Kellogg Strike, more football than you can eat.
The back of the Strike variation makes no reference to Strike cereal, unlike the Shreddies, which means that I prefer it slightly less, with the only difference being that the bio has been removed and the Premier League logo and album logo becomes larger. Middlesbrough's league campaign kicked off with a thrilling 3-3 draw with Liverpool, in which Ravanelli scored a debut hat-trick. He's still the only player to do that in the history of the Premier League, and Middlesbrough as a whole started incredibly well with 10 points in their first 6 matches. After a 2-1 victory against Everton at Goodison Park, there were dreams of even an unexpected title charge, as Juninho and Ravanelli were firing on all cylinders, and Emerson was also taking the Premier League by storm. And Juninho and Ravanelli were demonstrating themselves as true international masters of the game. This is the aforementioned International Masters of the Game insert set, which is a 15-card set from the 96-97 Premier Gold album that features some of the stars of the Premier League from that era. I really love, let's just have a look at the Juninho. I really love this embossed style effect on the card, and then it's a gold foil background with some more information on the bio. But this Robson Middlesbrough team, with their cavalier style of football and degree of emotional naivety and instability, were inconsistent with, after the Everton match, they only picked up 4 points from the next 12 matches. There were bizarre episodes as well where Emerson went AWOL for an away match against Derby, citing his wife's homesickness, only to then turn up and watch the match from the stands. Middlesbrough were this intoxicating soap opera, which intensified still further just before Christmas in 1996 when a virus swept through the camp, meaning that they were unable to fulfil a fixture against Blackburn at Ewood Park. To this day, the actual version of events is still not known, but apparently a postponement had been agreed with the Premier League, which was then reneged upon, owing to it being requested too late. The league said that Middlesbrough could not simply forfeit the match and it would have to be rescheduled. However, they were fined £50,000 and, more importantly, deducted 3 points for their unprofessional conduct. The appeal rumbled on for months and was ultimately unsuccessful, and the 3-point penalty was upheld. Borough were this Jekyll and Hyde team capable of the most brilliant and incisive attacking play, whilst also often looking bereft of any defensive nous. Juninho was one of the best players in the league that year, and Sir Alex Ferguson said that he was the best player in the Premier League that year. And also, the defensive element of the team wasn't helped through a long-term injury to the stalwart skipper Nigel Pearson, and the team was a lot more solid after the mid-season arrivals of centre-back Gianluca Festa and the new goalkeeper Mark Schwarzer. The 8 matches that Festa and Pearson started together yielded 4 wins and 4 draws. But luck wasn't kind to Middlesbrough, and the match against Blackburn was eventually played as the penultimate match of the season, ending in a 0-0 draw. In the final match of the season, they were only able to draw 1-1 against Leeds at Ellen Road, meaning that they were relegated in 19th place. If they had not been deducted those 3 points, they would have finished in 14th, and even if they had showed up and lost 7-0 against Blackburn in December, they still would have stayed up on goals scored. The inconsistent nature of this Middlesbrough side is reflected still further when assessing their astonishing cup runs that season, in which they made it to the final of both the League Cup of which this is a ticket to the original match that they lost to Leicester City after a replay, and the FA Cup final where they lost against Chelsea. They could beat anyone on their day, but they could also lose to anyone. And the honesty about this Middlesbrough side and the steadfast determination of Bryan Robson to continually field his strongest side for the whole of the cup run, despite such a precarious Premier League status, is admirable, if not a little naive. I mean, no Premier League manager would do that now. But also, it may sound a bit stupid, but I don't think it's important that they didn't win either cup and they got relegated. I'm not in the minority when I say that time has been incredibly kind to this Middlesbrough side. One of my best friends, who's my age, was a season ticket holder that year, and he remembers it. Even though that relegation, it's his favourite ever season. There were histrionics from Ravanelli amongst other infighting, which has gone into in way more detail in this brilliant book.
You're joking, aren't you?
That chronicles the season and is written by a Middlesbrough fan. But my friend, he still describes Juninho as being this deified figure there, and there are a few more iconic images than Ravanelli's trademark celebration with his shirt over his head. That iconic Cellnet shirt as well with the crest on the side. The truth is, when I think about this Middlesbrough side and look at this Ravanelli foil sticker, they evoke almost like this Proustian response within myself, and I can only reference the movie Ratatouille when the hardened critic Anton Ego is transported back to his childhood and his mother's cooking upon tasting Remy the Rat's ratatouille dish, a peasant's dish. Now, I'm not equating a Merlin sticker as a peasant's dish, but it does transport me back to being a 5, 6 or 7-year-old and the smell of the newsagents and asking my mum for a pack of stickers. I see this sticker and remember the thrill of when you catch the gleam of a shiny when you open the packet, and I see this sticker and I remember being back at Old Trafford as a 7-year-old watching Ravanelli and his iconic grey hair limp off injured in this pulsating 3-3 draw in the most biblical of Manchester bank holiday rainstorms. I see it all and I remember it all, and I'm not in the minority. That's what collecting does to us, and that's what sport can do to us. Our relationship with football isn't parasocial. It isn't even the sport itself. It's sensory. To me, it's emotional. It's about our relationship with ourselves and the ones we love. 1996-97 Middlesbrough are loved, and they had an open-top bus parade after being relegated and losing 2 cup finals. Imagine that happening now. It's barely conceivable. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Next episode, we'll continue on with the 97-98 season when we look at another episode there, and we're going to go across to Middlesbrough's regional rivals, Newcastle, and something else that happened there. If you've enjoyed this video, please comment, like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. But for now, bye bye.